All right, we're going to do one more of these videos. This whole fiasco it's coming up with new events and new nonsense so quickly, it's hard to even have the mental real estate to keep up with it all, honestly. We're going to do one more of these quick updates, and then eventually I'll just do a big video. This is, I mean, it's nuts. It's absolutely insane. So what's happened since we last talked? Last video, well, Binance is apparently setting up an industry recovery fund. That's one exchange. Binance, it makes sense. OKX is apparently also setting up like a 9-figure recovery fund. And I'm surprised they're doing that because I thought they were kind of more at risk. Maybe this is a publicity play to show that they're not at risk. I don't know, but we'll see. At the moment, there's not really a lot of FUD going on with OKX specifically. On an unrelated note, Elon had SpaceX buy ads from Twitter after saying that SpaceX doesn't buy ads, which is hilarious. It's really interesting. And then there's this interesting thing about Kevin O'Leary. So Kevin O'Leary went on television and said that if SBF came to him with another business idea, he would invest with them again. And that he was a great trader, and just went on just publicly talked about how great SBF was. After the fact, he's saying this. This is, I don't think anyone should ever listen to Kevin O'Leary ever again. Which I think is pretty transparent now. I don't know how the hell he got this far. Actually, I have done a bit of a look into Kevin O'Leary's past, and he's mostly just lucky. He's kind of just the epitome of rich people getting rich because they were lucky. It really is the case. If you look into the details, he's just like that. And I think this really exposes how little his word really means. Also, I think last video we were talking about BlockFi having some issues. They are now formally in bankruptcy. They halted trading a little while ago, and now they're formally filing for bankruptcy, which is just predictable, honestly, predictable. What did you think was going to happen, really? And then it looks like Zusu and Kyle Davies, the 3AC grifters, are now trying to play the victim, saying that FTX hunted their trades and they only went down because of FTX. And we all know that's not true. There's a lot of stuff that they did with leverage and just irresponsible stuff that, it's their fault. And it gets even crazier than that, because it's not just that they're coming back and playing the victim, not just on Twitter, but also on television. And not just that. They have a new fund that they're raising money for. They're trying to get people to give them more money because it wasn't their fault the first time. You almost can't even make this up. It's incredible. We're now seeing a bit of selling from Bitcoin miners on chain, which makes sense. The prices are low enough where they kind of have to, but it's actually not a large amount. It's a surprisingly not impressive amount. But they are kind of dumping a little bit on us. So that started. There's no real way around that at these prices. There's a class action lawsuit now. Interesting, because I don't think there's a class action lawsuit that I've heard of on SBF or Caroline or any of the big players. But there is a class action lawsuit on the celebrities that endorsed FTX. So who is this? Tom Brady, Steph Curry, Golden State Warriors. There's actually a bunch of others. Let me see if I can find the name. Shaquille O'Neal. So a bunch of these people are being included in that. So the celebrities are getting sued, presumably because they're the ones that potentially have money that can actually pay out, whereas SBF essentially is broke now. And it looks like they finally got to a point where the FBI is willing to extradite Sam Bankman-Fried. So the FBI is getting involved. They're getting him extradited to the U.S. It's incredible that he's been this whole time just playing League of Legends and just kind of chilling in a $30 million mansion. Absolutely incredible. Bernie Madoff was in cuffs the next day, immediately. This is abnormal. This is irregular. It's absolute nonsense. And we'll go into why that might potentially be in a second. And then also the narrative seems to be switching, and all the New York Times and all these different outlets are kind of getting to a point where they're trying to talk about CZ. They're trying to make it CZ's fault for exposing FTX. Whistleblower, well, he's not really a whistleblower, but people who bring bad things to light aren't the ones that did the bad things. If you have something that CZ did, then, that's his own thing. You can't blame him for FTX. FTX wasn't his problem. You can potentially investigate him for, publicly tweeting that he's going to dump hundreds of millions of dollars of your competitor's, token on the open market. I can see the rationale for that. That's a separate thing. You can't blame him for FTX, though. That doesn't make any sense at all. And then further dominoes falling. So there's a company called Genesis Global Trading who owns CoinDesk. They own Grayscale. And they have, they're involved in a lot of earn products, yield products, basically. And one of the exchanges, not all, one of the well-known exchanges that uses them is Gemini Earn. So Genesis now has halted their operations. And now, what's his face? Gemini is now having serious issues. They've had over $400 million withdrawn from their exchange. They went down. Now at this point. Yep, that's going to be horrific for them. I think Gemini is probably the next domino to fall, and Gemini is a big domino that could fall. But the Genesis story is a lot bigger than that. It's a lot bigger than that. First of all, this whole Genesis thing with their earn products is there's more than just Gemini involved. So we're going to see more dominoes fall related to this. DCG, the parent company of Grayscale and Genesis, if they have to liquidate the GBTC, if they have to liquidate the trust, that is one of the largest single holders of Bitcoin in existence. Thing is, if they have to liquidate that much Bitcoin, it's going to crash the prices. I mean, this is apocalyptic. We're talking worse than I think any other crypto winter in the past. Apocalyptic. Truly apocalyptic. Once we get to, I want to say 8,500 or 9,000 or something, or maybe 10K, Sailor gets liquidated. Sailor owns like a tenth of all Bitcoin. So if GBTC goes down, I'm pretty sure Sailor goes down, which means the price goes down to, quadruple digits. Minimum. It's going to potentially be even worse than that. And then apparently Binance might be interested in buying the Genesis loan book. So Blockworks reported that, and we'll see if anything ever comes of that. In terms of, who the fuck asked for that news, somebody posted that they plan on releasing a Caroline and SBF sex tape on the 18th. Yeah, please miss me with that. Who asked for that? What does that accomplish? What? Like, come on. That's ridiculous. Get out of here, man. Oh yeah, funny thing. When Kyle Davies went on television, they asked him like straight up where he is to see whether he was open for extradition. And he was like, I'm not in Bali, but I'm in a good place. Which is hilarious. And then other shady things that FTX has done. They apparently have maybe used synthetic stocks to short GameStop. So interesting. They've done apparently more things outside of crypto. And AMC, I think, was the other one. So they've done some meme stuff outside of crypto that, so their perfidy knows no bounds. And apparently there was a whistleblower who sent things to the FTC multiple times, and everybody just kind of ignored them. So that's a big thing, which is going to be looked into now. So recently we just found out that the Republicans retook the House of Representatives in the United States, and they are now going to do an investigation into FTX and SBF. Good. I think that would have happened anyway. I signed a petition to make sure it happened, and I don't know how much pressure that actually contributed, but it's happening. And specifically, we want to make sure that Gary Gensler gets investigated. So that was what was in the petition, and hopefully that is what ends up getting done. Because if the regulators are involved, and actually this is a huge potential regulatory issue for even Bitcoin going forward, because Sam put a bunch of CFTC officials, former CFTC officials, in FTX. And he had a lot of close ties with the CFTC and pushed them to become the Bitcoin traders, the Bitcoin regulators, which we wanted because, let's be serious, CFTC has a lower budget. They regulate less because they kind of can't regulate as much as the CFTC or as the SEC. And even the SEC doesn't have enough budget to do what it does. And I mean, if enough shade is thrown at the CFTC for this, we're going to get an SEC regulating Bitcoin and all of crypto, provided everything still exists after all of this. Which I think it will. But, I mean, this has gotten darker every single day. It's getting brutal. Singapore's Temasek, which I mentioned 2 videos ago, about 275 million. They're writing it all off to zero. They don't expect to get any of it back. All crypto lenders in the entire space of crypto, all lenders are done except Nexo because they got lucky and took their money out shortly before FTX went under. And then one part that we are going to go into a little bit more detail in is, and Ramp Capital is also going under, apparently. I've never heard of them, but I guess they're screwed. What we're going to go into a little bit of depth is what Sam Bankman-Fried has actually said and his interviews. There's been 2 New York Times articles. Both were friggin' puff pieces on SBF. Incredible. These are the pieces that are trying to spin that CZ narrative that they're, the Chinaman bad, and this nice boy from MIT is just, he just made a mistake, and full on misinformation. But there's another article from Vox that's a bit better, and I'm going to go through that one in detail. I'm also not going to go through his tweets. Ever since the whole what happened, and then he HAPPENDD, that whole thing played out, and then he posted like multiple 30-something tweet threads. I'm not going to go over that because it's infuriating. This guy is such an asshole. He's so callous. He has no regard for the damage he's done. I don't think he even has a concept that what he did was really bad. He's just regretting that he was caught. That's really it. And that's why I'm going to go through the Vox article real quick, because I don't want this video to be too long. But there's a couple of things. So they were DMing each other on Twitter. He basically said that he doesn't actually believe in the power of regulators to do anything. He was lying about that the whole time. It was all just PR. He thinks that regulators always make things worse, which is categorically the opposite of everything he was saying and doing. So apparently his work with the regulators was strictly to just get himself in an advantageous position. Incredible. Still infuriating. His tweets in the other 2 articles, they make my blood boil. But at least this seems honest. You at least see him be the slimy piece of shit that he is. And he thinks consumer protections are good, but nobody can do it. He can't do it. CZ can't do it. Regulators can't do it. I mean, it's cynical to the point where you kind of realize where this whole taking advantage of people and stealing $8 billion comes from. He doesn't have any regard for anybody's well-being or needs or anything. What else? I mean, he says that only the rich can invest. It's not a good system. All right, fine. But see, throughout this whole thing, he says a lot of platitudes. While at the same time later, we're going to say, he's going to say like, oh, these woke people just say whatever and people agree with them. Well, that's what you did, and that's what you're still doing. So fucking shut the fuck up. It's hard to even read some of this. It's infuriating. That's why I don't really want to do another video on this. This is burning my mind. But anyway, he also had a view on, doing unethical things for good. And this was all just PR nonsense. He full on just admits it. It's all PR nonsense. His pretending to be virtuous was pretending from the start. And yeah, all of it was a front. And he admits it openly admits that. He's hanging himself in public right now. He went on the record with the Vox reporter for this article. I don't understand why he's publicly, I get it. He has no chance. Maybe he just gave up on trying to defend himself and he just wants to come clean before he goes to jail for the rest of his life. But my God, like what the hell? And then he also admits that the FTX in Alameda, because FTX initially didn't have a account or something, so everybody was just wiring things through Alameda, and he just never bothered to even keep track of the money that was going between the 2 companies. Never even bothered. I mean, it's incredible. And then he basically also admitted FTX wasn't gambling with money. They gave it to Alameda, and Alameda gambled with their money. Okay, fucking, isn't that great? Isn't that so much better? And then he said the main thing that he regrets is filing for Chapter 11. This guy still thinks that he could have just made it back. He still doesn't see that what he did was wrong. He thinks all he needed was a little bit of extra time. He also explicitly says that every exchange, or most exchanges, do some variant of what he does. That's going to definitely, I think that's intentional. That's intentional. He just wants to let it all burn down now, because the bank runs are going to get exacerbated by this type of news. One of the tweets that I have on my feed right now is literally what he said, but instead of saying most, they said all exchanges are doing what SBF did. He knew they were going to say that. That's why he said that. Yeah. So it's pretty brutal. And he thinks the FTX hack is an employee, which is also pretty much generally what we think at this point. He says he's going to spend the next 2 weeks trying to raise $8 billion, and that's the only thing that's important to him. Screw him. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I don't even know with this guy. Some parting thoughts for right now. I mean, right now, the biggest thing that people are trying to point out is that, we're at still like, what's the Bitcoin price right now? It's, I think it was like 16.5 last I checked. Yeah, 16.6. We are holding up weirdly well, to a point where you almost got to wonder why and how. How are we holding up this well? I don't know. It's odd. I doubt that if these liquidations that we just talked about go through, we're going to continue to hold up this well. If GBTC gets liquidated, we're not going to hold up this well, especially because Sailor is the next domino, and that's a huge domino. So yeah, that sucks. That's pretty brutal. And the other thing that people are talking about is the political aspect of all this. The Democrats getting all those donations. So what are they going to do with the donations? They should give them back, I think. But ultimately, the Republicans should also give back the money that they got. Remember, he funded both sides. It's not the problem is with money in politics. It's not just the Democrats. It's any sort of lobbying. It's all corruption. It's all corruption. All of it. It should not be allowed. Unfortunately, the concept is very straightforward, but the execution is very complicated because of previous legal precedent. And I guess Poland got hit with a missile that they thought was from Russia, but it turned out to be Ukraine, and it's an international incident, but they're hoping World War III doesn't happen. Fingers crossed. Stay safe out there, guys, and I'll put end screens with the previous videos that I used to cover this, right about now. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Like and subscribe. Love you all. Some of you.